This video is going to establish the baseline, the fundamental area and aspect from which all of my decision making and everything goes on. You're going to hear dogs and animals throughout this process. Oh well. But this is going to really just set the foundation. As I've realized over these past 8 or 9 months that I've been working on this project, it's very difficult to explain anything without explaining a bunch of other things. So I really need to hope and trust that people are willing to be a little more into the long haul process. And if not, whatever, I'll try to make things as short and sweet as possible. Right here, the baseline fundamental knowledge of health and the body and the way things are going right now is really, I think, to understand that throughout time and history, we were not unhealthy. We did die of a lot of contagious, spreadable diseases. So what happens when you stop being a hunter-gatherer and you start living in close proximity to livestock and you start living in close proximity to each other, you start building homes and living in these areas, that is where bacteria starts to grow into things that can cause pretty serious distress to the human body. Before that, don't get me wrong, there's plenty of bacterias and things that you can run into in this world that are going to make things a problem for you. I don't know why I speak like this. It's gonna fuck you up. That's what I really want to say, but I try not to do that. I try to make this as fucking PC and whatever. I'm not gonna do that shit. So, okay, so you have bacteria. Bacteria really starts to become an issue when you start living in close proximity with animals and with your crops and things like that. So that's a whole different issue, and you stop exposing yourself to as much air, moving yourself around, yada, yada, yada. So what I'm trying to say is that right now, human beings die of chronic diseases, cancers, tumors, diabetes, obese, diseases, and all the things that are related to it. I mean, all of these things are really interconnected here. Before that, we died of things like tuberculosis, the flu, the plagues, spreadable viruses, things that we can now treat with medicines and through modern science. And thank God, we've even vaccines. I don't know, some people out there in the natural health world are not a fan of vaccines. I think that spreadable diseases are a fantastic thing, or that we have eliminated through modern sciences. The thing we have not eliminated through modern sciences are the chronic illnesses. Those are the things we're talking about. The fact that your wrist joint just doesn't feel, tip-top shape, arthritic pain, all of these different issues that, are due to chronic inflammation and obesity. I mean, not to mention that being obese just puts weight on your joints that shouldn't be there. It puts fat around your tissues that creates more of a constraint for your tissue, for your organs. I'm sorry, constrains your organs in a way that makes them more difficult. So, like fatty liver, all of these issues that you may have heard of. Fatty liver is a serious issue, especially with fructose, because fructose needs to go to the liver, be turned into a triglyceride before it can be burned. Sucrose can go, or dextrose can go right into the bloodstream, even through the mouth. That's why Mexican Cokes tastes better than American Cokes in that slight way. American Coke is still very sweet, but it's not the same thing because it's high fructose corn syrup, so it's mostly fructose in the sweetener, and it has to go to the liver. And you taste it as sweet, but you don't get the bloodstream hit from the mouth. With dextrose and sucrose, or whatever, with table sugar, form of dextrose, sucrose, it can absorb into the bloodstream through the mouth as soon as it hits your saliva. It can digest into the bloodstream and start then, so you get that instantaneous. That's why sugar feels great to us immediately. That taste of sweet is like, oh my god, just an explosion of calories into the system right away. Also an explosion of insulin, which at periods of time, not a big issue, but on a repeated basis and throughout the day, sipping on things like high fructose corn syrup based beverages, just eating chips, eating snack foods, eating little candies throughout the day, continuous insulin release into the body is definitely not a place to be. Continuous release of eating of anything is not the way to be, but especially for sugary things. Okay, so chronic diseases and curable, spreadable diseases. Chronic diseases are not, we're looking for cures for all of these different things, and they're not curable in the format that we're looking for. We're looking for cures to Alzheimer's as if it's going to be a medical breakthrough. The medical breakthroughs will be in understanding the components of the body that start to break down in more detail so we can understand when it is happening. So you'll start to see the markers, see the deterioration a lot quicker and a lot easier, and so therefore we can step in. But the only real things you can do to help your actual health are change your freaking diet and your environment, meaning exercise, meaning mentality, things like mindfulness and, meditation, just listening to music in a mindful way. It's all coming back to the way in which you treat your mind and your mental practices and how that accumulates as overloading stress or as a feeling of connectedness, togetherness, productivity, or does it feel like overwhelm? Two basic, very simple situations with that are, do you wake up in the morning and you feel like you don't love yourself so much, so you don't love other people, so you don't love so much of society and the world around you, so you feel not very much interested in doing anything for yourself or the world around you? It's a small thing, starting with just a little bit of a negative view of yourself or of your day or your situation, that can turn into, I'm not saying it changes your overall worldview entirely, but it does make you feel not so motivated to want to do anything, as opposed to, bam, the exact opposite. You wake up and you feel pretty good about yourself. You want to do positive things for the world. You don't feel pessimistic. You feel optimistic that you could do something for society, so therefore you maybe do something that is for a greater good, because I do believe that it is our responsibility. Whatever. We should do good things. That's what I'm working on. This is my narcissistic way of hoping that I'm doing something good without having to, I don't know, do something less scary. I don't know. I've spent a lot of time doing this shit, y'all, so I'm really hoping this can help out. So this is what I plan to do. This is what brings me down to it. So contagious diseases, chronic illnesses. We're talking about arthritis. We're talking about cancers. We're talking about secondary progressive multiple sclerosis. This woman right here, Dr. Terry Walls, MD. This is the first thing I ever saw that got me into nutrition, and this is the book that I first got. It's called, if I can do this backwards, Minding My Mitochondria by Dr. Terry Walls. So she was in a tilt recline wheelchair. She's a neuroscience. She's a physician of some sort, and she's a research physician, I believe, and she's also a teaching physician. So she teaches doctors. So she was in a tilt recline wheelchair. She suffers from secondary progressive multiple sclerosis. So what that is a neurodegenerative disease that starts in the brain. As the brain starts to deteriorate, it starts to deteriorate the parts of the brain that feed the muscular centers of the body and basically give you control over the muscles in your body, and also keep those muscles alive. The problem is once you stop using those muscles and your body is worrying about those muscles, it's cutting off that connection to those muscles. They just start to die. So you're losing not just the muscular strength, you're losing the connection from your actual brain. So your brain is really what is suffering. Alzheimer's, dementia, all of these things are really aspects of the brain starting to shutting down. So we have brain cancer and we have heart cancer. Those are the two things that are really happening to us, and those are our two most vital organs. Those are the ones that suffer the most directly when we are not good. Okay? So hopefully we're on like a page here, like we're riding this wave together. So chronic disease and spreadable, curable, contagious diseases. So we died throughout the early days of humanity of these contagious diseases, right? Tuberculosis, the flu, blah, 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 plagues, all these different things. Spreadable, curable disease. Well, I don't want to keep saying curable. Spreadable, contagious diseases that we've actually used modern science to handle very well. I will fully admit that, and I will always admit that I think modern science has its place. The thing I don't think it's doing anything for are the chronic illnesses. So this is where diet comes into play. We did not have arthritis. Your body didn't start to shut down, develop tumors and cancer cells, which are, by the way, are in the most basic form, are cells that don't know how to die properly. They weren't built properly, so they're not receiving the proper signals, and then they don't die properly. And then they continue to grow at the expense of everything around it. So, bam, there you go. Cancer and tumor cells at the most basic, reductive, blah, blah, blah. Ugh. This is why it takes me forever to do shit, because I just often hate the sound of my own voice and everything I say. So, okay. Where were we? Shit. Where were we? We were riding a wave. So the modern day diseases, we did not have these fundamental problems. When we look at hunter-gatherers, we do not see tooth decay. We do not see the type of bone. We see much stronger bone density. We just don't see the types of issues that we see today. Don't get me wrong. It's very difficult to say that this person died of cancer, this person died of that. And there's also other issues complicating the fact that we didn't understand those. We just called all of that old age a long time ago. Like, well, they were all dying of cancer. They were dying of heart attack. Yes, I know. But the reality is right now people do live longer. That is correct. But they live a less quality life throughout the last 20% of their life right now on average. So people live a lot longer, but those last 15 to 20 years are often not great for them. So that's something that to me, this has never been a live forever issue. It's not even about like that aspect so much for me. It's more of like, I feel it now directly ever since I started really paying attention and noticing, that I can eat really, really quality foods and not eat a bunch of garbage. And now I understand that this stuff is legitimate garbage that you are deciding to put into your body, thinking it just doesn't matter because the rest of the world around you is doing so. If the world jumped off a bridge, that's getting ripped out of there for sure. Now that I've been able to pay attention, I feel I can feel what it feels like. I know what's going on. I know what I'm doing to my body. I know the way that I perform physically and mentally. Not that I'm some crazy performance athlete or anything like that. Very much not the case. But I just can feel my energy levels. I am a physically active person, and my mentality is the biggest reason I got into any of this. It's had a huge effect on my mentality. I've also worked with young adults who were, was considered a life coaching program. These people were definitely struggling with their own mentalities, and I can tell you for sure that getting them a diet that was just more regulated. For the ones that really saw a positive effect, they cooked every meal they ate, and they ate mostly a low-carb diet, and at the end, they were both doing ketogenic diets, actually, and experiencing really good mental outcomes and clarity from it, and they were both exercising regularly, and they went from some pretty severely bad, negative, continuously spiraling negative places to a much more balanced and focused place where they were just able to handle life like it was just, it was life. There were still issues, but it was just, we were at a much better base level. Base level. That's what we're here to talk about today, that base level of understanding. So it is not at all that I know better than people who are freaking doctors and who are incredibly intelligent. So there's doctors out there that, believe in veganism, and there's even doctors out there that probably support raw food, even though that's pretty rare. Maybe even fruitarians or something like that. That shit's bogus. What I can say is I've spent a lot of time listening to it. I have found a lot of people who believe in very common threads. And those common threads seem to all be based around the idea that we should be eating high quality meat and protein. I say that like, as if it's the low quality meat that is really the issue. The real issue is the low quality processed crap. Low quality carbohydrates. Honestly, you could be eating completely corn-fed beef all of the time and still be okay if you were eating a completely whole foods diet. Corn-fed beef, first of all, those cows eat grass for the majority of their life. For the record, all cows eat grass for the majority of their life. So they get fed that corn, that's why it's called corn finish. They get fed that corn for the last little bit to fatten them up the most, and that's all their bodies can handle. That last little bit is awful for them. That's why they often get shot with different hormones and different things like that. Antibiotics, that shit that's, leaking into the systems of society and now just, like, wreaking havoc all over us. But these are all bigger conversations. So the basic aspect, again, is not that I know better than people. It's that I've found people who really do seem to understand what the hell is going on here, and they're pointing in the same direction, that we should be eating meats, we should be eating vegetables. Some people say we shouldn't be eating vegetables. That's a different story as well, but we should definitely be eating meat. You should most likely be eating vegetables. And you should be eating organic foods for sure. We should be worrying much more about the content and quality of our food overall. And that should be the fundamentals of your diet. So the reality is, if you want to be vegan and vegetarian, we're talking about psychology then. We are not talking about the true best diet. You're talking about believing in something that doesn't exist. I don't know. I honestly can't spend this time on this. Is not about that. So the common thread that I have found from people that have gone from secondary progressive multiple sclerosis, from being in a tilt recline wheelchair, not being able to sit up straight, to being a fully functioning human being, and I believe just under 2 years, fully functioning, riding her bike, running in half marathons, I believe it was, and stuff like that. I mean, she's in her 60s too, so it's not like, half marathons pretty freaking good. And to have recovered from that, I think she's in her probably in her 50s. She was probably in her later 40s to 50s when this started happening. And she recovered, and she's probably in her later 50s, maybe early 60s now. I could look that up, but whatever, it doesn't matter. But I'm saying she's in the more or less kind of somewhat later stages of her life, fully gray hair. And she has recovered from secondary progressive multiple sclerosis, an incredibly debilitating disease that we do not have a cure for. And I know this because I have an auntie, who has multiple sclerosis, and it's an incredibly, incredibly expensive thing to suffer from. And she's got funds. She takes the best medicine that medicine can buy or that money can buy. So, and I don't know what her progress would have been without that, but it's not. She hasn't progressed. She's not getting better. I've tried. Whatever. Different stories. And other times. So when I see someone who has reverted themselves in that way, and I see other people who have found this common thread that, hey, throughout our entire existence, we ate these meats and we ate these vegetables and some tubers, a little bit of nuts and seeds. More recently, we did start eating things like legumes and grains, and that has a little bit happened in our past. That's a different story as well. Those whole foods are still, again, way better than any of the processed nonsense that's going on in this world today. This is what we've seen, and these people were healthy. And this also brings me to the next person I would like to talk about, which I'm not going to get into today, but I would like to make a little bit of a demonstration on, a man named Weston A. Price, who I believe in the 60s, or maybe it was 70s, 80s, something from the 60s to the 80s, traveled around to indigenous tribes that had not been touched by modern Western societies, anything like that, modern civilizations. And he took pictures of their teeth and noticed that they had these big round faces, these big round jaws. All of their teeth grew in perfectly with no crowding. I'm going to put myself on the last. See, I got that bottom tooth snaggleness, and I've had a bunch. I've had braces twice. I had a bar under there. I had retainers. They couldn't keep that stuff from crowding. It's because that's not the issue. The issue is actually lack of omega-3s in the diet, and probably a bunch of other things that we're not able to attribute to it yet, that don't allow the jaw and the face to develop in a much bigger structure. Our bones are much more brittle and weak and narrow because of our diets. Our diets are incredibly mineral deficient and nutrient deficient. We're just resilient human beings. We're able to make it. So, yeah, that's what's been going on. This is the foundation of what's going on. So this is where, when I tell you what I'm looking for people that definitely understand the sciences, but the reality is what I'm looking for is what seems to be the clear evidence of eat real food. It's actually really that simple. And that eating real food, whole foods, over the course of your lifetime is an anti-cancerous, whatever, endeavor. Like the idea that eat this, it's anti-cancerous. Like, well, anytime you're eating something that's doing a benefit to your body and not a negative, you're eating something that's anti-cancerous. So just relax. It's not that you need more antioxidants. It's not that you need this supplement. It's not that you need to eat this every single day. You could go your entire life and not touch kale and be okay. It's that you need to eat whole, real foods throughout the course of your life and save the other indulgent stuff for very rare occasions. I do mean that. I mean rare occasions. Eventually, the goal here is for you to understand how I understand what food is doing to our lives. And when you see that, I just don't get the pleasure out of like a piece of cake and stuff like that anymore. Like if there's a specific occasion and like there's ambiance around things, then yeah, I like to do that. And I still like a piece of pizza and a milkshake or something like that. Whatever. Those things aren't specifically off limits, but I don't, that's a rare treat, and that's not, they absolutely do not make me feel good, and that's it. I don't believe those are food anymore. I don't see that as food. I see that as something I'm treating myself and allowing myself to indulge in, but I'm putting that in, well, it's funny, it's not actually in your body, because your digestive tract is actually a tunnel going through your body, and like a car going through a tunnel underwater, you're never in the water. But you're still allowing all of those microbes and organisms and enzymes and blah, 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 to be thrown into your most sensitive area of your entire body, and the area that controls the gut access is a very very important thing, and it controls access to what we receive in the brain, and all of the different hormonal signals that happen in our body that control our energy, our mood, our hunger, our sleepiness, our wakeness, our sex drive, all these different things. So this is where I come from, and this is what's been fascinating to me, because at this point in life, we just think of food as cheap calories, or as don't eat meat, don't eat animal products because that's healthy, or eat low fat, eat healthy carbs, eat heart healthy grains. All of this nonsense just needs to be gone. You need to leave the middle of the grocery store completely behind you. Eventually, maybe even the grocery store. You need to eat real fucking food. You need to go to a butcher, you need to go to a farmer, you need to go and get real food. And you need to eat that throughout your entire life, and you need to feed that to your family. And you need to make that a part of your entire life. And we will be very much done with these. You will not spend your money and your time in the later years of your life in illness and paying for, paying for disease cures that are never going to come. It's just not the case. It seems beyond evident at this point. So this is where I come from. This is where I hope to help from, and this is what, to me, this is what it's all about. All right. Hope it helps. I really do.